Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm here with special guest Aaron Mate from The Nation magazine. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy.
And so you've been doing some great work. You were just back from Venezuela. And so I'm going to show you what CNN has been saying about Venezuela. And then I'm going to show you a video by Max Blumenthal, who was out in Venezuela with Aaron. He actually goes to a supermarket. So here's what CNN's been saying about what's happening. And God damn, they're so horrible. Here we go.
And what is on the plane are basic goods, things that aren't available or accessible in Venezuela. Things like...
By the way, the USA aid, I'll do another video on this maybe, or maybe it'll... it's all a sham, right? So Elliot Abrams did this before. They have, we're going to give you aid. And what they do is they're really trying to ship in arms and stuff to foment a civil war. And that's why they won't take the aid. If the United States wanted them to get the aid, they would give it to the Red Cross. That's not what they're doing. Okay, so CNN fail off the bat. They fail with this report. Here we go.
And what is on the plane are basic goods, things that aren't available or accessible in Venezuela. Things like nutritional biscuits, toothpaste, toothbrushes, just basic commodities that aren't available or readily available to Venezuelans right now because of the regime that they're currently living under.
So here's Max Blumenthal. He's actually going to go see how horrible it is down there. Let's watch.
Supermarket in Caracas called Gama. I feel lost in the supermarket coming here in Caracas. This is cheeses. There's a lot of cheeses and meats here. People here like meat. Okay, we got like congealed meat. We got like so much meat. There's a lot of meat here. I mean, a lot of tomato sauce. You can see the aisles are pretty full of stuff. I mean, they got a whole aisle for pasta. A lot of people love yogurt here. The cruelty of this dictatorship prevents them from having 0% Greek yogurt. I don't know what this says. Does it say Maduro is using hunger as a weapon to enforce communism among his people? Here you can see something serious with the speculation as to pet food. Pet food is here. This one costs 66,000 bolivars, which is over $20. That's the problem here. The problem isn't scarcity. The problem is inflation and speculation brought on by the capitalist class of this country. Okay, so I had a pretty normal experience at the supermarket. I was able to get pretty much everything that I usually get back home in the States, including like this bag of craft beer, until my credit card didn't work and I had to pay in cash. I paid in dollars. And that really shows what the problem is here, that I had to pay in dollars. There isn't an issue here with food distribution or food scarcity. The issue is the buying power of Venezuelans has been completely destroyed because their currency has been so badly weakened by hyperinflation, speculation, and the flood of dollars that the government can't control here, as well as hoarding by private capitalist elements that support the opposition and are making a ton of money off of this kind of economic war. And that's something you really won't know if you watch U.S. media on Venezuela. And that's why we're here, the gray zone, to break the media blockade.
There you go. The gray zone, breaking the media blockade. So there's a guy in a supermarket. There's food all over the place. Jorge Ramos, CNN will tell you the exact opposite. Jorge Ramos will show you people eating out of a garbage truck, as if that's a representative of what's actually happening all over Venezuela. Bernie says this: the people of Venezuela are enduring a serious humanitarian crisis. The Maduro government must put the needs of its people first, allow humanitarian aid into the country, and refrain from violence against protesters. So, again, we've said this over and over and over, and we already showed this in another video, that when the CIA and the oil companies want to go and take over someone else's country, they first have to launch a narrative. And the narrative is that the guy's a dictator, he's mean to his people, and we're bringing humanitarian aid. And so even though Bernie, he doesn't say so in this tweet, but he has said previously that he's against intervention, when you first say this stuff on your way to saying we shouldn't intervene, you're actually doing more damage than good. You're actually cementing the CIA's narrative that we need to go into Venezuela and help people. Because if you agree that there's a humanitarian crisis and this guy's a dictator, well, now aren't you the immoral person if you don't want to go help them? That's the trap the CIA lays. And when Bernie repeats it, and not just Bernie, here's Elizabeth Warren. She does the same thing. Elizabeth Warren says, I think right now we provide humanitarian aid. We make it clear that we know that Maduro is a dictator and does not have our support. We join our allies in supporting the opposition, but we need to not threaten the military intervention. So all of that is CIA talking point. You're cementing the reasons why for CIA to go in and us to go in. And that's horrible. And by the way, they both know better. So she knows the history. She knows Elliott Abrams, the history of using aid. They know, and so does Bernie, and so did their advisors. So we're ruled by sociopaths. How about that? So they're okay going along with this. This is what they talk about, this Faustian bargain that liberal politicians in the United States have to make. They have to say, okay, if I get to talk about the banks and I get to talk about Medicare for all, if I go along with the foreign with this, that's what people have speculated that's what's happening. So I just want to show you what's happening with the aid. This is what's really happening with the aid. An interventionist deception of Colombian-Venezuelan bridge. The Trump administration's coup against Venezuela culminated on February 23rd with a U.S.-backed opposition attempting to ram several trucks loaded with boxes of USA aid, humanitarian aid, across the previously unused Francisco de Paula Santander Bridge connecting Colombia to Venezuela. The trucks failed to reach the other side, but that was never really the point of the stunt, as Father Sergio Munez, a right-wing Venezuelan activist, posted on the Colombian side of the border, explained to journalist Dan Cohen. The humanitarian aid was a purely symbolic provocation aimed at discrediting Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and internationalize and generating waves of destabilizing violence. So this is the opposition trying to foment violence inside the country. This is what they do. This is their playbook. This is Elliott Abrams. This is Trump. This is Mike Pence. This is John Bolton trying to cause violence inside Venezuela. That's what they're trying to do, and Venezuela knows that, which is why Venezuela is accepting aid from other countries, just not the United States. Okay. On the Santander Bridge this February 23rd, the masked right-wing opposition youths known as Guerrilleros rained down a hail of rocks. So the opposition, the people on wanting to get rid of Maduro, people in favor of Juan Guaido, people on the side of Trump, are starting violence, and they're throwing Molotov cocktails at the National Guard people in Venezuela. And this is during when they were trying to get those aid trucks through. Suddenly, the trucks caught fire, and the masked youths began unloading boxes of aid before they burned. Within minutes, pro-opposition media reported that the Venezuelan National Guard forces were responsible for the fires. Do you see how propaganda works? Do you see this? Okay. The total lack of evidence of Venezuelan culpability did not stop Cuban-American Senator Marco Rubio from tweeting this accusation from nearby Cucuta, Colombia. I'm not going to show you. He tweeted out a picture of dead Muammar Gaddafi being sodomized with a sword and saying that's what's going to happen to Maduro. Do you remember what we did to Libya? All right, we'll get to that later. Bloomberg News, which has run a relentless stream of pro-opposition reports, published video showing guerrilleros on the bridge making Molotov cocktails, which could easily set a truck cabin or its cargo on fire. Meanwhile, the International Red Cross issued a statement. The Red Cross condemned the Venezuelan opposition activists, the people on the side of Trump. The people on the side of Trump. They're condemning. This is who the Red Cross is condemning. They're condemning the people that the CNN is on the side of. They're condemning the people that MSNBC is on the side of, and the Washington Post. The Red Cross is condemning those people. The Red Cross says the Venezuelan opposition activists disguising themselves as Red Cross workers. A blatant breach of humanitarian protocol. A screenshot from the pro-opposition NTN24 coverage shows a fake Red Cross worker near one of the burning trucks. There it is. Fake Red Cross. And that's Max Blumenthal. Not sure if Venezuelan opposition activists disguised as Red Cross workers actually mean well. And here's Donna Shalala. Donna Shalala says, I'll make it clear Senator Sanders does not reflect. So she's talking about him saying we shouldn't go into Venezuela. So Sanders gets it from both sides. He gets it from people like me, and he gets it from people on the other side who want to go into Venezuela. So that's why you should take a position, a principled position anyway, because you're going to get criticized. So be principled. Don't go along with it. So she says, I'll make it clear Senator Sanders does not reflect the majority of the Democratic Party and our support for Venezuelan interim President Juan Guaido. You're ruled by sociopaths. The Democratic Party's support of Juan Guaido. The whole party. And the Venezuelan people. Maduro is a dictator and must go. We're ruled by sociopaths, and I don't think that's a stretch to say that. Let me throw it over to now, Aaron Matei. You were in Venezuela. What do you make of politicians saying stuff like that?
They are following in a long line of propaganda used to gin up support for regime change wars. This happens every single time, and this thing with the aid that Max reported on and exposed is a good example of what you do when you can't achieve your aims democratically. So the U.S. has been trying to undermine Venezuela for years, poured tens of millions of dollars into the opposition. Juan Guaido was trained and the people around him were trained in USAID-funded programs, which they do everywhere. That hasn't worked because the Chavista movement has won 23 of 25 elections in Venezuela. So then you try to create a sort of a pretext for intervention by pushing this claim of a massive humanitarian crisis, but omitting the fact that the U.S. has been hugely responsible for that crisis by crippling the country with sanctions. They did the same thing, and the person who helped oversee it was Elliot Abrams, did the same thing to Nicaragua in the 1980s. The Sandinista movement was popular. They were directing their resources for their own people, as the Chavista movement has done in Venezuela. And so to punish them, they tried a terrorist war via the Contras, and they also blockaded the country and cut it off from the financial community. And that's what they're doing now to Venezuela. And sure, there are human rights issues in Venezuela, and there is an economic crisis, but all this becomes a pretext for a nefarious regime change agenda, which has nothing to do with helping the people of Venezuela. And you have people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, unfortunately, not standing up to it and even playing along.
That's the most unfortunate thing. Here's some more. You want us to get some more debunking? Zero Hedge caught this. Washington Post quietly deletes Branson's Venezuela concert from article after fake attendance figures were exposed. This is from the Washington Post. They did an article. So the Washington Post is also pushing Venezuelan regime change. Isn't that interesting? They do it all the time, except somebody else's fake news. They're not going to lose their fucking Facebook page. They're not going to lose their Twitter account, no matter how many fake wars they push. So here they say the attention, this is from the Washington Post, the attention on Saturday remained immediately focused on the single largest staging ground for aid in Cúcuta, Colombia, where a massive benefit concert hosted by British billionaire Richard Branson drew a crowd of more than 200,000 people. That is propaganda.
Divide that by 10 and you're still being generous.
And you're still being generous.
Yeah.
Because Moon of Alabama actually did a little debunking, and it says, Venezuela, Abrams to make sure humanitarian aid flights are... So they go, no more than 20,000 people came to Branson's concert stunt. And then after they published this, the Washington Post quietly changed the piece and eliminated the fake concert attendance, but they didn't tell anybody they did that. And people look to the Washington Post like they're some kind of arbiter of truth. Democracy dies in darkness. That's their mission statement at the Washington Post. They're trying to make it die in darkness. A second version of the article mentions Branson, but eliminates the 200,000 figure. This is what it says. So that's now this is the same paragraph, but they took that part out. And then then finally a third version of that story from the Washington Post. The most recent version of the article has no mention of Branson or his concert.
The fourth version of that article says, we've never heard of Branson.
We were talking about Branson, Missouri. So there's the Washington Post, CNN, every goddamn news station printing pure propaganda, pushing pure propaganda. And now you know why they smear us. You know why the Washington Post put me in a smear article. Now you know why CNN put me in a smear article. A little jagoff comedian, C student, in his fucking garage. Why? Because no one else is going to tell you the truth. Certainly not our politicians, and certainly not conspiracy cowards like Rachel Maddow and people, everybody at CNN. That's not going to happen. And so this is the only place you're going to get it. And that's why they're really coming down on us. So thanks for your support for this show. We're announcing our dates for 2019. We're going to Ventura Comedy Club, March 31st, Tempe, Arizona, Austin, Texas, Portland, Chicago, and lots more. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a list of all our dates and live shows. And please become a patron. We give you hours of bonus material. And please make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you're subscribed, they unsubscribe people every day, and you might be one of them. Check to make sure you're subscribed, and then you have to click the bell twice so they send you a notification when we drop a video. Thanks for your support.